I think when she gave birth to me, that she already had a vision for me.
My first memory in life, like too many Australian children, is of violence.
I felt really alone, separated from the decisions being made that impacted me and my generation.
We noticed that there was some towns in rural South Australia that didn't have pharmacies.
6 in 10 Australians have been abused or neglected. 6 in 10. It's a national emergency. And we don't treat it like a national emergency. We don't really like to talk about it. My first memory in life, like too many Australian children, is of violence. And I'm a person with a disability, and when I was growing up, that meant that you were bullied. And so I just did so much to pretend that I was normal. I fell into the field of child protection, not really connecting my past to my present, but it makes me better at what I do. A really significant kind of early impact in my career is just seeing the issue of cumulative harm being recognised in our laws. That sounds very academic, but what it actually means is that kids who are experiencing chronic abuse and neglect, there was a legal way that we could intervene to protect those children. Later in my career, I was really lucky to be appointed as the Professorial Fellow for the Royal Commission into Institutional Responses to Child Sexual Abuse. I was able to develop the research agenda for the Royal Commission. We should be so proud of it as a nation, what that Royal Commission achieved. It shone a light on our dark history of abuse in institutions, enabling those stories to come out and change to be made. I'm proud of that. Actually, when you look back at the history of child protection, there's not a point where you can say that system was good. And it's not because it's filled with bad people, it's actually because it's a bad system. My ultimate goal is a transformed child protection system that is fair, that has heart, and that we can be proud of. That's not just rhetoric to me. And I think it means that we have to be really brave to pull together the knowledge that we have to transform the way that we approach the design of child protection systems so they can actually be helping systems rather than systems of fear, systems of shame. We've got a lot of the answers already from the evidence. Some of what we need is the courage to actually apply that evidence and be prepared to really do things differently.
I'm a very traditional individual from the Flinders Ranges. I'm from the Adyamanna cultural group, and I speak my language very well. My mum, she gave birth to 14 children, and not one of us were actually born in a hospital, including myself. We were all born in a creek bed. I think when she gave birth to me, that she already had a vision for me. Well, I've worked in Indigenous affairs now for well over 50 years, and in my role I've always advocated for the most vulnerable in our society. I am engaged with the people at the grassroots level, and in particular, especially the elderly people in our communities, and to be able to listen and to be able to take their concerns to the next level, and especially dealing with local government, state government, and also on the federal level as well. I want recognition for the First Nations people in Australia, the oldest living culture in the world of 60,000 years, and to be able to work with both parties to be able to develop a bipartisan agreement whereby that they come up with a model that is acceptable, whereby that they can actually present it to the broader community in Australia. I think within our community, I'm talking about the First Nations people, is that there's an enormous amount of intergenerational trauma, and that's caused as a result of a number of other factors. And these are some of the things that I'd like to talk to government, whether it's state or federal, and to see how we can deal with those trauma that's have an enormous amount of impact on our younger generation. And I've got a very good understanding about actually identifying what are the key subject in terms of the policies. And if I can share some of those knowledge with everybody, and I think that I'll be very, very proud to know that I've been able to reach out to not only the young people, but also to the elderly as well.
I remember feeling like I was the most disempowered person in the world when I was 16. I felt really alone, separated from the decisions being made that impacted me and my generation. At 17, I wanted to do something about it, so I created the South Australian Youth Forum. It's a platform led by young people, for young people, to drive the change within our communities and create that space so other young people don't feel alone in such a busy world. The South Australian Youth Forum is a dynamic environment for young people across our state to come together, meet monthly and discuss really important issues of relevance that directly affect us. We have been engaged in multiple levels of decision-making processes. We produce an annual report which reflects hundreds of young people's voices across South Australia through surveys, through workshops and through consultations. And we present these to ministers and parliamentarians, community ambassadors and academics at the end of each year. Often our reports are included into statewide youth action plans, motions into state parliament and other legislation as well. So last year, we created 2 really big frameworks into mental health barriers to accessing mental health services in South Australia and the barriers to accessing period products in schools. We were recently at the United Nations Summit of the Future in New York. We were expert witnesses at the National Inquiry into Civics Education, and we are looking into youth loneliness with Flinders University. A lot of people would see our work influencing these national decisions as some of the biggest highlights of the forum, and yes, they are incredible. The biggest highlight for me is being able to work alongside so many people doing incredible things. It just builds up every little inch of me and continues to mobilise my own passion. Youth voice is incredibly empowering, it's incredibly powerful as well, and youth community is even more powerful.
So we met in Pakistan, and where we were both studying pharmacy, and we got married. And in 2003, we came to Australia. We planned to go from Adelaide to Darwin by car. We noticed that there was some towns in rural South Australia that didn't have pharmacies. So we end up opening pharmacies in 6 different regional towns in South Australia. And those pharmacies are now an integral part of those communities.
6 pharmacies establishing was one part, but another challenge was how we're going to continue that service for long term. Always we have a shortage of local workforce. They don't really prefer to work in regional part. That's a very common thing. We engage overseas pharmacists to come to Australia in a way that we can attract pharmacists to work in rural part. And for that purpose, I started some education program, free education program. I started weekly webinars where I invite and talk about how to pass the overseas qualifying pharmacy exam. And that actually motivated a lot of pharmacists. I was getting contacted from South Africa, from Kenya, from Middle East, from India, from Bangladesh, and a lot of countries, even from Norway, even from UK, and a couple of pharmacists from USA. I'm very proud to say that nearly 1,000 pharmacists have passed the exam in last year.
There's a lot of people who are from health background who contact Irfan. It's doctors who want to come to Australia. There's a lot of nurses who want to come to Australia. And the Australian rural communities need help because we don't have a lot of trained, qualified professionals in the rural communities. I think it's going to make a huge impact on the wider community in Australia that somebody from overseas can do it. I hope that I can inspire more and more younger people to make Australia their home.
We really encourage our young health professionals to come and enjoy working in regional communities because this is a great opportunity for them to start their early career.